Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gary GZ Duels, and today we're going to do another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Stories with Gary. In this episode, we're going to talk about deception in Yu-Gi-Oh! And mind tricks. What you want to do in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not just play with the cards and with the card effects straightforward. You don't want your monsters. You don't want Yu-Gi-Oh! To be a game where your monster's higher attack than his monster. You do damage. That's kind of boring. What you want to do is you mess with your opponent and gain advantage when you don't necessarily have the advantage. So there are two ways to do that. The first way is to generate false security. So that's the first way, generating false security. The second way is to generate insecurity. So for the first way, generating false security, what do I mean by that? What I mean is you have the resources to stop your opponent at your disposal. You have the Dark Hole in your hand, or you have the Mirror Force in your set back row, you have the Torrential Tribute, but you choose not to use it yet. You choose to use it when your opponent overextends a bit more. So what you do is when your opponent attacks with a little monster, you let that little monster's attack go through. You take some damage. Now that will lure your opponent into a false sense of security. They will think, oh, that back row probably isn't anything important. So next turn they special summon out like 3 monsters. And then they enter battle phase and attack you. Now you use Mirror Force and you actually capitalize more from your Mirror Force. You gain more of a plus from your Mirror Force because you've lured your opponent into making a play that they would not normally make if they weren't comfortable. So you lure them into a false sense of safety and then you punish them for it. So a cool higher level way of doing this would be to manipulate chains. Now, recently I've been playing a lot of decks with a lot of heavy back row. I played against this one deck where he used Royal Decree on me when I had 3 back row set. I just said, okay, go ahead. And what he did was, he entered into battle phase, he had like 3 monsters on the field, he wanted to OTK me that turn, he just wanted to attack. When he declared the attack, I flipped up my Mirror Force on Chainlink 1. Now there's a response delay, my opponent didn't respond with anything because he has Royal Decree face up. He probably thinks I'm a noob for activating Mirror Force anyways. Now Chainlink 2, what I did was I activated Mystical Space Typhoon, targeting his Royal Decree. Thereby, Chainlink 2 resolves first, destroying the Royal Decree, and then my Mirror Force on Chainlink 1 can resolve naturally, destroying all of his monsters. And that, luring him into a false sense of security, thinking that he had Royal Decree, he's not afraid of my back row, summons all of these monsters, and I just get rid of them with one fell swoop. So that was really, really cool, and I encourage you guys to just do that, generate false security for your opponent, and then capitalizing. Okay, another way to mess with your opponent mentally is if you generate insecurity. So generating insecurity is kind of like the opposite of generating false security. What you do is when you really don't have the resources at your disposal to stop your opponent, but you make it seem like you do to your opponent. So the most notable way that everybody knows is to set bluffs to your back row. So when you only have like a Missile Space Typhoon, I don't know, a Upstart Goblin and a Pod of Duality, what you do is you don't hold them in your hand and tell your opponent, hey, I have nothing. What you do is you set all 3. And then your opponent's thinking, what the heck does he have in the 3 back row? Is it Mirror Force? Is it Bottomless? And those doubts, those insecurities will plague his mind when he's when he's making his strategy, making his moves, because he'll think, should I summon this monster right now? There's a risk that it'll get bottomless. There's a risk that when I attack, it'll get destroyed or removed with Deep Prison. So what should I do? That generates a doubt into his mind, a sense of insecurity when you in fact don't have anything, and then he plays more cautiously, and when he plays more cautiously, he gives you more time, so that this time that you buy with this insecurity, you can actually draw into the resources that you need, and then actually make a sizable fight against them later on. So that really helps in the early game. So what you can do besides setting bluffs, there are some next level tricks. What I like to call playing unusually, and the Gore's Gambit. Now the Gore's Gambit is something really specific. So you open up with 6 cards and you just pass your turn right away. You just look at your cards briefly and determine that you don't want to play anything this turn, just pass your turn. Leave your field blank. What your opponent thinks is, why did he do that? Does he have Gores? Or is he like, some sort of Trigodia or whatever? There are enough hand traps in the game right now to generate that insecurity. So what your opponent might do, since it's first turn, you're not doing anything, he's not doing anything, he's just going to play passively. He's going to maybe play a small monster attack you directly, or maybe just set a monster or a few back row and let you go. But what you in fact did was buy an extra turn for yourself, see a 7th card before you make your strategy, and that can sometimes be game changing and make the right decision at that point. But the Gore's Gambit, I will say, will not always work in the long term. You should just use it like when you're in the early game, and you don't rely on it long term, because eventually your opponent will say, hey, you know what, I have enough resources as well, so I'm going to make a push. If he has Gores, I'll just get rid of it by, Dark Hole, whatever. Don't rely on it long term. Now, there's another way to play. This is provided that your opponent is a good player. You want to play unusually. Use your deck to your advantage. If your deck is Black Wings, and your opponent knows that you're playing Black Wings, and your opponent knows Black Wings has like Kalut, attack their higher attack monsters with one of your small monsters. Just try it. Just use your Blizzard and attack into one of his Utopia, and then see what he does. Does he let it go, or does his insecurities prompt him to play something like Deep Prison because he might think you have Kalut? Either way, it messes with your opponent. Your opponent is like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and when that happens, they're open to make mistakes. That's all I'm saying. Mess with your opponent mentally, either by generating false security or generating insecurity. It really helps with your strategy because you are in control of the game, you're in control of his mind, and then you prompt him to make mistakes. And that really elevates your game. You can get better in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just by playing like that. And yeah, I hope this was helpful for you guys. I hope this was informational. If you have any other ways to mess with your opponent, I'd love to hear those. This is what I like to do on Death Pro and on Dueling Network, just mess with my opponent, asking for responses and stuff when I don't have anything. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Gary GZ Duels, signing out.